What is going on, everybody? How you doing? I am your humble guide, Stagtastic, coming back at you in Way of the Hunter. If this is your first time visiting the channel, I want to say a very warm welcome on behalf of the entire Bear River Hunt Club. But if you're returning to the channel, I want to say thank you so much for your continued support. Without you, none of this is possible, so just know that your encouragement goes a very, very long way. Today, we're going to be discussing everything that you need to know about hunting wood bison in Way of the Hunter's new map, Aurora Shores. Now, I don't want to go any further in this video without saying this. Wood bison are in fact on the threatened species list, which is much more severe than the endangered species list. Now, it's difficult to say how many are left in the world today, but strong conservation efforts are working very hard to improve and monitor the herd numbers that we know of. Now, thankfully, if left alone, wood bison can live up to 22 years, which really does help the repopulation efforts. I wanted to bring this up right off the bat because it should always remind us as hunters the importance of ethical hunting and the dangers of poachers and those who do not respect wildlife. We should all always strive to be ethical in all that we do in the woods and in our lives. With that said, before we talk about hunting the wood bison, I think it's important to understand a little bit more about them, because the more you know about a particular animal, the more you can grow to have a greater respect for them as a hunter. So let's talk about wood bison in general. Starting off, the answer is an emphatic no. And you're probably thinking, well, wait, Stag, I didn't even ask a question, but I knew deep down in your hearts that you were wondering if bison are the same as buffalo. Bison are not the same as buffalo, even though in North America the terms are used interchangeably. For example, the Buffalo Bills football team mascot is in fact not a buffalo, but rather it's a bison. But we don't see the difference in North America. However, if you ask someone from Africa or Asia what a buffalo is, they would have a very different idea in mind. Now, it's a mystery about how these two terms became interchangeable in North America, but the fact remains that in today's modern world of zoology, a bison and a buffalo are two very distinct creatures. Here's a photo of a bison and a buffalo side by side. You see, these two animals are very different, so now that you know that, if you ever have a chance to visit Yellowstone or a number of the national parks containing bison, you can impress the park rangers and your family with this new information. Now let's talk about some of the key physical features of wood bison. Now, perhaps you're wondering how the wood bison got his name. You might even think that it's because they enjoy eating wood off trees. I mean, that seems like a perfectly logical explanation, right? Wood bison because they eat wood. But that is not the answer. No, they are not called wood bison because they eat trees. The answer is very simple. Wood bison migrated north into Canada into areas referred to commonly as the woodland areas where they made their homes. You see, I told you the answer was very simple. Now, wood bison are not to be confused with their cousins, the plains bison, which are found in the United States open plains and savannas. Now, outside of the clear geographical differences between these two bison species, wood bison have several body features that are different than the plains bison. Here's a photo of the two of them side by side, and I want to know, can you tell which is which? No? Well, that's okay. Not many people can. Now see if you can figure it out after I give you this clue. Look at the hair on their heads. Wood bison's head hair is longer and lower. Still can't figure it out? Here is one more clue. A wood bison's hump is more pronounced and extreme. So just by looking at the head and hump, you can easily distinguish the two apart. And in addition, bison in general are the largest animal in North America, coming in at just under 3,000 pounds for large males and approximately 1,500 pounds for large females. Now, knowing this information brings me to my next point. which is rifle selection and gear. With Wood Bison being absolute tier 6 tanks, there is only one clear choice for hunting them. Wood Bison have a recommended hit energy of 2,889 all the way up to 5,386 joules of energy, and for that reason the clear choice award goes to the... well, actually, the choice is not so clear, and let me explain. Because of their max hit energy, Wood Bison fall in line very nicely with the 300 Win Mag, at least on paper. But there's one thing that we didn't consider, and that is the bison itself. The game treats bison differently than most of the other animals. You see, bison have extremely tough, thick hides that are several inches thick, and for this reason, the in-game dynamics actually takes this into account and will let you get away with hitting a Wood Bison 2 times with a 300 Win Mag at mid to long range, and you will still receive a 5-star hunt. Instead of letting you get away with 2 hits from a 300 Win Mag, you can get away with a single hit on a bison from a 338 Lapua, even at close range. And for this reason, I would recommend just going with a 338 Lapua because it has enough power to bring down a bison with a single shot, even if your shot is a little off. However, in normal circumstances, the 300 Win Mag is going to bring down a bison at close to mid-range distances with the right shot placement just fine. So these 2 caliber rifles should always be your first choice when hunting bison. It just depends on how close you think you're gonna be. But for me, I'm always gonna take that 338 Lapua whenever I'm planning on hunting bison. Now, as far as collars go, there are no bison collars in the game, so you don't have to worry about that. So now that we have our rifles picked out, let's go ahead and talk about where we want to land our shot. The best place to aim on a Wood Bison is just behind their front leg, but below their midline. Aiming in this area will always ensure that you hit at least 1 lung and will give you the best chance of hitting the heart. Now, Wood Bison are very forgiving as far as shot placement goes because of how large their lungs are. So as long as you aim somewhere in their midsection in line with their front leg, you are guaranteed at least 1 lung. Now keep in mind that a single lung shot may not be enough depending on the caliber that you're using, so just like we talked about with our rifle selection, more power is always going to be preferred to ensure we're not taking more than 1 shot on a bison. If you don't have a clean profile shot on the bison and that bison is contoured away from you, then I want you to go ahead and just draw an imaginary line down their front legs and top it off at their spine. Aiming in this area will also ensure that you hit at least 1 lung. If that same bison is contoured towards you, I want you to go ahead and note that there are several inches of muscle and tissue that the bullet will need to travel through in their neck just to reach their lungs. So unless you're very confident in the caliber that you're using and the energy that you're bringing, I wouldn't necessarily recommend taking this shot unless it's all that you have. So let's talk about where you're going to find these huge beasts. Bison have a single primary habitat location, and that is in the highland forest areas, which makes sense because they are wood bison. They like the woods, which is very lucky for us because Aurora Shores has the greatest number of highland forest locations compared to the other habitats on the map. Wood bison can be found eating at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m., drinking water at 9 a.m. and 10 p.m., and snoozing at midnight and 1 in the morning. Knowing these need zone location times is going to help you when you go out and scout for bison. Perhaps the easiest and most effective way to find bison is to simply walk the rivers and streams in search of these drinking need zones for the bison. It would be even more beneficial to go and scout the rivers around their primary drinking times. If you can find that drinking site, then their feeding site, which can be a lot more difficult to find, is not going to be far off. But keep this in mind, if you do end up finding that drinking zone and you get there early enough, go ahead and take note at which direction the bison are coming in from, because more than likely they're coming from a feeding zone, and you can go back and ultimately scout the area for their eating zones. But again, if you are struggling to find need zone locations for wood bison, or really any other animal for that matter in Aurora Shores, start looking around water. Water is your best friend for finding need zones quickly. And just like that, that is everything that you need to know about hunting wood bison, and I hope that you found the information you were looking for, plus more. If you feel like there's something I missed, or if there's something that you would like to see that was not in the video, let me know in the comments and I will make sure to include those things in the next installment of the series. Y'all, thank you so much for being here. I really do count it a blessing to be able to bring you this content every time I go into the woods, and I really do hope that it helps you become a better, more skilled hunter in the future. With that said, I'm your humble guide, Stagtastic. Happy hunting, and take care.